These action stars had major roles in really big pictures during the genre's heyday in the 80s and 90s, but they all ended their career with a big question mark. Wondering whatever happened to these well-muscled men and women? We've got the answers you've been looking for. Vernon Wells personified a very specific type of 1980s villain, the guy who always seemed to have his wardrobe on loan from an adult club. It started with his role in Mad Max Road Warrior, in which he played shoulder-padded, mohawked madman Wes. Wells also appeared as Rancic, a recurring villain in Power Rangers Time Force, in a role that seemed cut from the same cloth as Wes.
If I can't rule the present, then I'll just rule the past!
His other prominent role was as the over-the-top villain Bennett in Commando.
John, I feel good! Just like old times. What's it feel like to be a dying man? You're a dead man, John!
These days, Wells looks more like a dad than a leather daddy, and he has a sense of humor about his characters becoming gay icons, but to this day still swears there was no sexual subtext intended. These days, Wells has been keeping himself busy with bit parts and voice acting, but mostly can be found focusing his career behind the camera, directing and producing. He also works with Wolf Connection, a nature preserve to domesticate wolves and allow bonding with visitors and campers. In Aliens, Jenette Goldstein made a name for herself by playing the tough, no-nonsense Vasquez.
Hey, Vasquez. Have you ever been mistaken for a man?
No. Have you?
She also had roles as Megan Shapiro in Lethal Weapon 2 and the foster mother of John Connor in Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Goldstein remains extremely proud of her genre and gender-defying role for good reason. Now she owns a company, Jeanette Bras, named after herself, naturally. She founded the company when she realized department store lingerie departments were rarely accommodating for women with smaller band sizes combined with larger cup sizes. Probably best known for playing the immortal swordsman Connor McLeod in cult 1986 hit Highlander, Christopher Lambert seemed destined for action movie stardom.
There can be only one.
But while he popped up in a handful of other action properties in the 90s, he couldn't escape the shadow of the Highlander. When the big offers stopped coming and B-movies loomed, he decided to branch out with some new business ventures, including a winery in Provence. Apparently, they all took off. Still, he occasionally appears in modern action movies, like when he appeared as the villain in Kickboxer Retaliation. Sonny Landham made the big time as Billy Soul, the tracker from the mercenary team slaughtered in Predator. He also made appearances in The Warriors, 48 Hours, and many more 80s action flicks. His acting career dwindled in the mid-90s as he devoted more time to his political career, but it came to a screeching halt in 2008 after a radio show gone wrong while he was campaigning for a Kentucky Senate position on the Libertarian ticket. After an increasingly unhinged rant, the Libertarian Party withdrew their support for Landham's candidacy. After that, he appeared in a couple roles for low-budget horror films like Disintegration and Mental Scars. Landham passed away in August 2017 of congestive heart failure. Name a high-stakes profession, and the chances are Jesse Ventura has dabbled in it at some point. A Vietnam War vet, this former Navy SEAL and Rolling Stones bodyguard made a name for himself as a professional wrestler in the early 80s before making the move to the big screen. He got to rub shoulders with genre kingpin Arnold Schwarzenegger on multiple occasions, perhaps most notably in 1987's Predator. Ventura played the bullish, tobacco-chewing gunner Blaine Cooper in the classic film, and he almost upstaged the leading man despite a limited amount of screen time.
You're hit. You're bleeding, man.
I ain't got time to bleed.
Oh. Okay.
Ventura made another notable appearance in 1993's Demolition Man, but by the end of that decade he had switched his focus to politics, becoming the governor of Minnesota from 1999 to 2003. Although he started on the New York theater circuit, Peter Weller eventually headed out west in search of movie work, arriving in Hollywood during the action movie boom. Weller gave viewers a glimpse of what he was capable of in campy 1984 action satire The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, and Paul Verhoeven apparently liked what he saw enough to cast Weller in what would become a career-defining role, Officer Alex Murphy, aka RoboCop.
What are your prime directives?
Serve the public trust, protect the innocent, uphold the law.
The film was a success critically and financially and would eventually be regarded as a sci-fi movie classic. Unfortunately for Weller, 1990's RoboCop 2 was a bog-standard action movie, with all the gore but none of the heart that made the 1987 original a success. He eventually moved behind the camera for work, directing several episodes of Sons of Anarchy and even appearing in front of the camera for the 6th and 7th seasons. Weller became a literature and fine arts teacher at New York's Syracuse University for a time, putting his master's degree in Renaissance art history to good use. He continues to act, though, making appearances in television shows like The Last Ship and Forever. Charles Bronson was a no-nonsense tough guy even before he started his acting career way back in the 1950s. Born to Lithuanian immigrants, he fought in World War II in order to escape the grueling conditions at the mine his family worked for, during which he received a Purple Heart. After taking theater classes while supporting himself with odd jobs, Bronson eventually moved to Hollywood where he took on television roles. In the 70s, Bronson starred in his most famous role, vigilante Paul Kersey, in the Death Wish films.
You believe in Jesus? Yes, I do. Well, you're going to meet him.
That role served him well through 3 sequels in the 80s, earning him a rough-and-tumble reputation he embellished with tales of his arrests and violent hobbies, all of which he completely made up. Bronson's gritty archetype grew archaic in the 90s, but what ultimately ended his career was hip surgery in 1998. He struggled with health problems afterwards, eventually passing away in 2003 at the age of 81. Taking over from Roger Moore as James Bond was never going to be easy, but it was a chance that Timothy Dalton grabbed with both hands. The classically trained actor made his debut in 1968's The Lion in Winter, but had failed to climb the ladder from character actor to star. Bond was his chance to do just that. Even though he only played 007 twice, in 1987's The Living Daylights and then again in 1989's License to Kill, both of his appearances were ultimately well received by the critics.
Would you get me a medium dry vodka martini?
What a
shaken, not stirred.
A contract dispute between Eon Productions and MGM delayed Dalton's proposed third outing as Bond and gave the actor a legal way out. He decided to call it quits so he wouldn't be forever remembered as Bond, but that's what happened anyway. Still, he didn't stop acting. He's appeared in Edgar Wright's Hot Fuzz, had a recurring guest role in the TV series Chuck, and starred as Sir Malcolm Murray in Penny Dreadful. Michael Biehn owes his stint as an 80s action star to James Cameron, who cast him in 3 of his earliest films. Biehn played Kyle Reese in 1984's The Terminator, Hicks in 1986's Aliens, and Coffey in 1989's The Abyss, giving him plenty of fans in sci-fi and horror circles. The most iconic of those characters wound up being Kyle Reese, though at the time Biehn had no idea just how big the Terminator would become.
Come with me if you want to live.
Biehn told Den of Geek that people talk about it being an iconic movie with iconic characters and so on, but it was never that back then, and you have to remember, too, that Arnold was not a superstar. He was basically a bodybuilder in Mr. Universe. Schwarzenegger went on to cement his action hero status with 1987's Predator, but for Biehn, that star-making role never came. His most noteworthy appearances since have been in 1996's The Rock and 2007's Planet Terror. Taking part in Planet Terror rekindled a love for B-movies that Biehn forgot he had and inspired him to start his own production company specializing in grindhouse-style features.